not even the timing. Are you questioning Director Schmenk's departure, or are you rejecting the Kasich's explanation of the departure?
I think, again, it seems curious that all of this is going on, and then seemingly the one underpaid woman in the structure is leaving. It seems odd. The whole thing seems odd to me. That being said, I don't have the information because the governor is unwilling to disclose the information to me. So I can't make the conclusion. I will say, the longer that the governor's office postures not to disclose information, everyone is going to say, well, there must be something to hide here. Otherwise, why would you disclose it? If you're having conversations with the auditor about a subpoena, I don't know what those conversations are. I don't know if you do, but it doesn't seem like they're revealing what their conversations are. And I'm worried that what he's going to say is, well, auditor, you can look at this, but you can't look at this. Well, I think we need to see it all. And we've got an organization that apparently wants to act like a private organization when it's convenient and act like a public one when it can reach its hand into the taxpayer's cookie jar to get money and spend it. And so, again, I think we need disclosure. The governor needs to come forward, open up the records and say, here's the money we've received from DSA, here's the public money we received, this is who's paid it. There's no, we're taking money from these folks who are making private donations and making sure we help them out with public money.
Representative Carney, you said, if I recall correctly, that you questioned something criminal that took place regarding the money that was transferred to JobsOhio from the Development Services Agency. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think, certainly if there is money that is moving that has not been approved by the legislature, and potentially someone had knowledge of the fact that they were moving money from one place to another without authority to do it, and spending that money, public dollars, that now you get into the potential that there could be criminal activity going on. And so, again, we don't know that until there's full disclosure. That's why I referenced the 119 hearing process, because in the 119 hearing process, coming forward and washing your hands in front of the hearing officer is going to give you a benefit when you're entering into a consent agreement to say, all right, well, at least as soon as you realize you did something wrong, you disclose that to us. And so I think there's questions about what money was spent, how it was spent, what was the knowledge of the individuals who were signing purchase orders for things for JobsOhio by DSA. And again, I think we don't know that at this point. And so I'm worried that, with any investigation, whether it's civil or criminal, when you delay, it makes it more difficult to put it back together. And certainly I would hope that the chief executive of our state would realize that and come forward and say, I certainly don't want to be somebody who is working to cover up activities that potentially could be criminal in nature.
Do you think that you're fueling speculation by some of the questions that you're asking?
When I ask questions of DSA, when the governor says, you go down and you talk to those people at JobsOhio, you talk to those people at DSA, and you'll come to understand. It's complicated, but you'll understand. So I did that. I went down and did talk to those people. I was asked to submit my questions in writing, so I did that. Have they responded to any of my questions? No, they have not. So I think they are fueling speculation. The unwillingness to provide answers is fueling speculation that something is going on there. Certainly, it appears that they do not want to be responsive. Their unwillingness to be responsive, that's fueling the speculation. Me asking the questions, I am doing my job as an elected legislator, certainly as a member of the Finance Committee that's being asked to appropriate even more money to DSA, to allow JobsOhio to spend even more of your liquor profit money. If I don't do this, I'm not doing my job. I would say if anybody's fueling speculation, it's John Kasich, and he needs to come forward and answer these questions.
Can I ask, and I'm trying to get up to speed on the transactions that are in question, but some millions of dollars moved from DSA to JobsOhio, right? Well, what the Kasich administration explains is it's happened under agreement that was originally struck between the Department of Development and the Ohio Business Development Coalition. And this is a continuation of that. So if that indeed is true, should the previous administration also be questioned on whether that movement of money was illegal?
Well, I think it was Mark Kwame who was the head of the OBDC. So, essentially it was Mark Kwame saying to DSA, I'm moving over to JobsOhio, OBDC is going away, and by the way, this $5 million is following me into JobsOhio, which, again, I don't think he would have had authority to do that. Again, in order to fully understand the transaction, though, the individuals who are involved in the transaction need to come forward. They need to show us the contracts. They need to be willing to bear out, okay, well, this was the discussion, and Chris Schmank and Mark Kwame decided, well, we can just transfer this money without legislative approval, because that's what appears to have happened, that it just followed along. But
so you think that was improper?
you cannot move money from one agency to another agency without approval of the legislature. If the Department of Corrections would like to give $5 million to development, in order to do that, you have to come back to the General Assembly and make that request. You as a director, cabinet-level director, do not have the ability just to write a check over to another department without that approval.
Can I just remind everybody why, back to your question, why JobsOhio wanted to have some ability to not be accountable? Do you remember this conversation in the very beginning? And what they said was, we need to move at the speed of business, we're doing these transactions, we're incentivizing companies to come here, and we cannot disclose this information because it hurts our bargaining position. That is not what we're talking about here. That is a completely different argument when it comes to JobsOhio. These are dollars. These aren't dollars that are being used right now to lure a company to Ohio. These are dollars that have been spent. These are dollars that have gone into a budget. This idea that we shouldn't have access or know where these dollars are going and coming from is ludicrous, because that was not the argument for JobsOhio having this private piece. Do you remember the conversation, right? And so, and in some ways, think it through. Because JobsOhio is up and running, they have a budget. The money has been spent. There is no harm in disclosing now what monies were spent for what purpose, be it economic development or staffing or whatever it was. That does in no way jeopardize any deal that's pending between Ohio and a company and Pennsylvania and a company. Because remember, that was the argument, to have less than full disclosure. So we're kind of talking about two different things here. These dollars, this $5 million, is completely outside the realm of what they were talking about when they talked about the need to keep some of this, kind of under wraps. This is completely different from that.
Well, and let me amplify that with a quote from Governor Kasich. We want to maintain privacy when it is appropriate, only from the standpoint of being able to do a successful negotiation to create jobs and not put ourselves in a position to compete against ourselves. That's the governor's statement. So again, the governor is on record, the members of the General Assembly are on record, Mark Kwame is on record as saying, we are going to give full transparency with respect to what we're doing over here. It's just this secret sauce when it comes to convincing these businesses to stay or relocate that we don't want to share with you until after the deal's done. Okay, well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about money that was not appropriated to JobsOhio that showed up over at JobsOhio without the authority of the General Assembly. Yes?
You talked a little bit about pay to play. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what you're thinking there? What is it that you're kind of implying something, but I want you to say?
Right, so the governor is saying he does not want to disclose what private money has been received by JobsOhio. When you have an organization that's literally doling out tens of millions of dollars in public money through economic development incentives, but you are unwilling to disclose who's giving you some millions of dollars over here on the private side, inevitably, if you're unwilling to disclose that, people are going to say, well, if you make a contribution, does that mean you're more likely to receive public money in order to do whatever economic development projects you want to do? And so the unwillingness to disclose that is, again, fueling the idea that something unscrupulous is going on. And so, again, if the governor comes forward and says, okay, these are the folks who have made private contributions, this is the money that we've doled out. I mean, even the KPMG report that they come forward and say, oh, look at this KPMG report. There's several pages redacted we can't even see. And I will remind you all that even with the Pentagon, the military has to go to a group of members of the General Assembly and report their activities. And that group is required to provide oversight of what the Pentagon is doing, despite the fact that it may involve top secret activities of the military. The public still thinks it's a good idea to have people who are subject to public election stand there and make decisions with bureaucrats about how they spend their money. In this case, you essentially have bureaucrats making decisions without any sort of public oversight, and they're trying to pull the members of the legislature out of the process and say to us, we're asking for more money. By the way, don't worry about this, just appropriate us some more money in this budget.